Every sexual predator has two traits. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I spent many years working with sex offenders, registered offenders, and those who fail to register for their sex offense. And there are two very common traits among sex offenders in terms of how they operate. The first trait is they're always going to be looking for a source of vulnerability to perpetrate against. What that means is that they're always looking for a victim that is in a weakened or vulnerable state. When you look at, here's a way that I can simplify it for you. So I like watching Animal Planet, but when you look at Animal Planet, which animal tends to get gobbled up first? It is always one of two, right? The one that is weak and vulnerable. Maybe they were just born, or they just learned how to walk, or they were in a fight and they have an injury, so they're weak and they're vulnerable. And the ones that are, left behind, so they're all alone for whatever reason. They could be weak and vulnerable and all alone, or sick and all alone, or they just sort of wandered off from the herd and they're by themselves, and they get gobbled up first each and every time, at least from an Animal Planet perspective, right? And so predators work very much the same way. They always look for vulnerability, and so that could be someone who is intellectually disabled, or maybe even mentally disabled, or they look for someone that is if being raised by a single parent, and so they're left alone for long periods of time, or they're neglected for long periods of time, or they look for a child, which is very vulnerable, right? And because they can't spot predatory behaviors, and often, they often look for people with childlike mentalities, or who are very greened or unseasoned to predatory behavior. So there are a lot of offenders who are, they commit crimes of opportunity. So whenever they have access to, or whenever they have an opportunity to have access to someone who is alone or vulnerable, and so those you could definitely see that, but they're typically going to light up whenever they have access to someone who is in a vulnerable or in a state of being alone. The second, the second characteristic trait of an offender that you're going to see is someone who is very secretive about their sexual habits. Not only are they secretive just in general, but even with their partner. So there's a lot of things that they will not communicate about. Things such as consent. So even if they're with an adult partner, things that are hard for them are consent, or they engage in other behaviors around sex that they don't want to talk about. They going to the doctor, things like that. So just having open lines of communication and transparency, and in particular consent around sexual behavior is often those are going to be some of the hallmark traits that you're going to see in sexual offenders, and they are a lot of times very sneaky, or they engage in strange ritualistic behaviors around sex offense. Thanks.